you for joining us today. This is the Rocky Mountain Photographic Show, a brand new podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Futter. Today we'll be talking about locations in the Rocky Mountains to take photos. With us today, I've got Jeff Parker and Falon McCormick. How are you both doing today?
Excellent. Glad to be here.
Oh, I'm pretty good. I'm trying to become a life insurance agent, and that's a lot of reading.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
I'm really good. I'm excited to chat with you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. It's been quite a while. So today we're going to be talking about locations in the Rocky Mountains for photography. Okay, so where do you both like to go to take pictures?
Specifically in the Rocky Mountains?
Yeah, or in general.
Oh, in general, it's, oh my gosh, there's so many. But in the Rocky Mountains, I love the Silverton area for both wildflowers and aspen, and Rocky Mountain National Park for the elk rut, and then, of course, Yellowstone for, gosh, all kinds of wildlife.
Where's the Silverton area?
Southwest Colorado.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm up here in central Wyoming. What about you, Fallon? Where do you like to go?
So I grew up in Casper, Wyoming, so a lot of my stuff was taken either around there or Riverton. And I personally, I mean, you can never go wrong with going up on the mountain. But my favorite spot up on Casper Mountain is the archery range. There's a specific spot that's full of like sagebrush and just like tall brown grass that I love doing like senior portraits and stuff in. And then there's another spot that if you walk down a little further, you can just see all the mountain ranges behind you. And so I just absolutely love that area, and it's so beautiful during the sunset.
I like to go, I spend a lot of time, I'm from Riverton, Wyoming, like I said, so over by Lander, we have Sinks Canyon.
I love Sinks Canyon.
Yeah, it's really pretty there. I love to go there. I love to hike up to Paposia Falls. I also like to go to Yellowstone when I get a chance, which is only about a 4-hour drive for me. I've never been to Rocky Mountain National Park, but I'd sure like to do that. I'm in Denver all the time, so there's no reason I don't. It's just I'm always doing something else and busy with whatever. But yeah, those are my primary places to go. And Castle Gardens over by Moneta, Wyoming is also really pretty.
I haven't gotten a chance to see Castle Gardens, but I know that I've been in Sinks Canyon, and one of my most famous, or I don't want to say famous, but a popular photo that I have that I sell of the Big Dipper was actually taken up in Sinks Canyon, and that was one of my first and like only night shot that I ever did. So I absolutely love it up there. I shot a wedding up there a couple years ago, and it was really fun.
Yeah, it is. It really is. How long have you both been doing photography?
Oh, 20 years. I started in 2005. I'm living in New Mexico now, but I'm from Texas. So the first 7 or 8 years was almost exclusively in Texas before I started traveling much.
So I mean, took my first photography class when I was in seventh grade, and then went on and got my degree in film and part of a photography degree. So I mean, but professionally, I would say probably about 5, 6 years. And I just moved to Michigan from Wyoming, and so I'm having to completely restart my business from scratch. So that's been fun.
I've done it as a hobby since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. But I started a business in 2017, Jeff Futter Photography, and pretty much I've been doing it my whole life. So one thing you said, Fallon, was that you took a photography class in the 7th grade. Did you get to develop in a dark room and all that stuff?
So I didn't do that until I was in college, actually, getting my photography degree. Everything I did was digital. But what was cool about that was I did a lot with like learning a lot about like the lighting and contrast and things like that. I wish I would have been able to develop in a dark room at that point, but yeah, I didn't do that until college.
So when I was in high school, we had a dark room and we got to shoot film, and We got pretty much as much bulk film as we wanted that we could load into cartridges. And so, I mean, I shot a lot of film and then developed quite a bit of it in the darkroom, and it was a lot of fun. Learned a lot that way.
I really want to get my own dark room like at home and just do it because it's honestly therapeutic. I really, really enjoyed it.
Do you shoot much film?
I'm starting to shoot more film now that I know where I can get it developed until I can start my own set up my own dark room. I've started dabbling it a little bit more, but I haven't had anything developed or anything in quite a while. So
Do you use the darkroom.com?
that's what I'm going to use once this one camera is full. But also the camera shop here in Muskegon, they develop film as well. So I was probably going to check them out too and try and be local with it.
Nice. Nice to
Yeah.
have a local place other than Walgreens, or I don't even know if Walmart develops film anymore, but other than one of those big corporations, it's definitely nice to have somebody that specializes just in film developing.
Hmm. I agree.
I can't even imagine shooting film. Most of my photography is wildlife, and man, I just take a bazillion shots because a lot of times it's low light. I wouldn't be able to deal with the low ISO of film, and you gotta trying to catch the action, different poses. Yeah, if I'm down at 36 frames left on a card, that means it's full. I need to change it.
Yep,
That's
absolutely. That's I've always thought that wow, some of the wildlife pictures that you see from magazines and stuff that were 30 years ago, it's kind of impressive how they were able to get that with film because some of them are pretty good still, and they weren't shooting. They were probably shooting at 2 to 4 frames a second, not at
If
the
that, if
burst,
that, yeah,
not at the burst rate of 10 frames a second or 20 or whatever a typical mirrorless camera will shoot now for wildlife.
yeah, absolutely. That's hats off, man. I can't imagine doing that back in the day. I mean, I look at a lot of the stuff from like the 80s or whatever, and I think, dude, that's pretty bad. But then I think about what they're manually focusing and the limitations of film and all that. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, okay, I probably couldn't have done that.
See, and I think that would be a fun like challenge for yourself is to try and shoot wildlife film. I wish I could do wildlife. I just don't have the patience for it.
I don't have the equipment for it. I specialize pretty much in nature and fine art photography, and what I have a 24 to 105 lens and a 20 to 60 and a 15 millimeter Voigtlander lens, and those that gets me by pretty much. I do have a cheap telephoto lens up to 300 millimeters, but it wouldn't really be suitable for wildlife at all.
Yeah, are you what do you shoot? Canon, Nikon, Sony, other?
I actually shoot with a Panasonic S1R,
Okay,
which
so other.
it isn't great for wildlife just because the autofocus isn't the best for that. But for what I shoot, it is absolutely the best camera I've ever owned.
Cool. Yeah, I'm a Canon shooter, and they've got some reasonably priced long lenses.
I actually have a whole backup system that I use, which is a older Canon. It's a Canon 70D digital SLR, which for if I'm doing a wedding or something like that and my camera dies, it would be absolutely suitable to shoot with. And it's nice to just have that, but yeah, it'd be nice to have a good mirrorless for wildlife if I wanted to go into that, which I kind of do. Sometimes I go through stages of, dang, I wish I could do wildlife, and then I kind of phases out and I never really get into it, but that's all right, I guess.
Yeah, everybody has their interests, whatever floats your boat.
So what kind of equipment do
Evan?
you shoot with, Fallon?
I do Canon as well. I was in the process of looking at a Sony when I was getting ready to buy my new camera, but my boyfriend ended up surprising me with a Canon R7 for Christmas, and because that was the one that I wanted, so I could do video as well. And so I shoot mainly with my R7, and then I have a Canon 6D, just an EOS that I bought used, and it's been the old reliable that I like to use when I need full frame. And then I also have a 7DD that I got for my senior graduation, actually. and I still shoot on that every once in a while, and it's just a good backup to have.
I was actually, I used Sony for quite a while. I started with Minolta back in the film days, and then I got my first digital SLR was a Minolta, and then I switched to Sony because Sony bought Minolta, so all my lenses and stuff would work with it.
Mhm.
And I hated that camera, absolutely hated it. So I switched to Nikon, sold all my gear, switched to Nikon, and then after a while, I just wanted to switch to something else. Sony had changed a lot with their new mirrorless cameras and stuff, so I bought a Sony, and I've had that for a couple of years. And I was out shooting with a friend, and they had a Panasonic Lumix S1, and I got to use it a little bit, and I couldn't believe the ergonomics on it. It was the nicest camera I've ever used, and
Wow.
I absolutely loved it. And so I bought an S1R, and that's what I've been used shooting for the last couple of years now.
Yeah, I definitely have I mean, I've used Canon since the beginning of like me starting to shoot. And so I was wanting to try and branch out. I used to never want to use Sony because I always thought that they were just overly complicated. But I feel like their newer stuff is a lot more user friendly and easier to navigate through. I used a Sony, was it the A7, I think, for a marketing gig that I had. And I really liked it. It was really smooth with how it worked. And I was wanting something that would effectively do photo and video. And so that's why I ended up with the R7. Just because my other two cameras are great for photo, but they're not as good for video.
Yeah, and if you want an alternative, if you ever want to switch camera gear, Panasonic definitely is something to look at for video too, because they do excellent with video.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
just now starting to play around with video a little bit. I've never really messed with video at all, but it's something I kind of want to do, and I don't know, kind of fun.
I learned during COVID that a lack of time is not the reason I don't do more photo or video editing. Man, it's like pulling teeth for me to sit down in front of the computer and do video editing.
Oh, I love it. I am actually going to be in Wyoming the beginning of June to do a 48-hour film festival. And so me and my group of people will have 48 hours to write, film, edit, and submit a short film up to like 7 minutes long. And it is so stressful, but it's literally like my favorite part of the year.
Cool.
I'll tell you, video editing is one of the reasons that I enjoy doing video now. I've played around now with 5 or 6 different editing programs to just try them out and see what they're like. And I kind of got to the point I mastered all of them, and I really enjoy it, just sitting down and editing the video.
Different things for different folks. For me, it's like torture.
It's definitely one of those that you have to just like, yeah, like you have to be into it and enjoy it because it can be extremely time consuming. Every little tiny like photos, you can kind of get away with certain things or find little easy routes, but sometimes with video, you're just like replay, 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 and you'll listen to the same clip like 20 times in 10 minutes. So it's definitely tedious.
Yeah, exactly. I don't like to do a lot of photo editing either. If I spend more than a minute or two on a photo, that's really unusual. I want to be out in the field. I don't want to be sitting in front of the computer.
I can agree with that 100%. Unfortunately, that's not always possible to be out in the field, and it's just sometimes you got to sit down and do it. What software do you both use?
For video, I've tried both Adobe Premiere and DaVinci Resolve.
I
Among
use
those two,
Adobe for everything.
among those two, I found Adobe to be the harder to use, a lot harder to use. DaVinci Resolve was pretty easy. What do you use for photography?
I use Breeze browser for my initial like downloads, and then deciding which ones I want to go ahead and process. And then first step is DxO Pure Raw, and then into Photoshop.
I use Adobe Premiere for video, which I actually been wanting to get into DaVinci Resolve. I just haven't done it yet. And then I do Lightroom and Photoshop for photography. I used to dread Lightroom, and I only wanted to do Photoshop until I started shooting weddings, and I was like, well, I can't edit all my photos in Photoshop. With there's 5,000 pictures I gotta go through and narrow down.
I'm kind of the opposite. I've familiarized myself so much with Lightroom and not really with Photoshop that I hate using Photoshop for anything and I struggle with it. And Lightroom, I mean, I can just zip around in there without any problems.
I think my only concern with Lightroom that, and maybe this is just the whatever you'd call it, prestigious artist in me, but I just feel like Lightroom, at a lot of times you're not as thorough as you could be. Um, I like editing, and so I like being really meticulous. So I really enjoyed Photoshop because it was so just manual. So you'd go into Camera Raw and mess with the exposure and everything else, but it was very meticulous with like every little piece that you could do. Whereas Photoshop, it's just or Lightroom, it's just more of the like bulk. I don't want to call it face value, but it kind of feels that way sometimes because you can edit, so many photos to look the exact same. Whereas in Photoshop, you're doing everything individually and you're almost just kind of like just spending that extra time on the photo, I guess. And so that's why I really liked Photoshop is I felt more involved with the editing process, whereas with Lightroom, it's just such a quick breeze and I'm not spending as much time and care on each photo as I would have in Photoshop.
I really like that one of the things I used Photoshop for in the past was layers. I really liked the layers in that.
Mhm.
And that's the only reason I ever used it. Now Lightroom has introduced layers, and with that I could do 99% of what I do in Lightroom and don't have to touch Photoshop.
Right. Yeah. See, I still have a lot of learning to do in Lightroom because I still have to go back and forth quite a bit, but that's when I'm working with portraits and having to like fine tune their skin and everything else that I can't just necessarily do in Lightroom. I do love Lightroom's remove tool and their denoise tool though. That's like my favorite.
I've been using Topaz. I don't know if either of you have tried that at all for denoise, and I couldn't be more impressed with it. It's really been amazing for some of my older photos that I never really did anything with. I saved them because I save everything because I, just like using up space, I guess. But um, my thought was that maybe I could do something with it in the future, and really I can with Topaz denoise. It's pretty amazing how it keeps the sharpness while it denoises, whereas Lightroom a lot of times will just zap your sharpness anytime you add any denoise to it. Have either of you played around with Topaz at all?
I've tried Topaz in the past. Today's software is pretty freaking amazing. Between Topaz, DxO, and the latest, I guess it's probably the same in Lightroom. I use Adobe Camera Raw, but they've got noise reduction in there now that's pretty darn good. It doesn't make it all smooth and plastic like it used to. I find for 98% of my shots, DxO Pure Raw cleans up the noise just fine on anything else. And then if I want to do something further, I usually use Nictifine. But I have tried Topaz in the past. Yeah, for sure.
I never even heard of Topaz.
It's a pretty big player as far as third-party plugins.
I'll send you a link to it, Fallon, if you'd like to check it out. I think you can download a free trial and use the free trial. You just can't export your pictures, I believe. So
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
7-day trial, I think, right?
I don't remember, to be honest.
That's what
Probably.
DxO has, and I think Topaz is the same way.
Yeah, I'd like to try it.
Problem is with trials, I always end up spending too much money on software. I always like a lot of the software I try and don't have a choice but to buy it, and then half of that software that I buy I never touch.
Yeah.
There is one software that once I start picking up more weddings, I'm gonna definitely have to invest in. And I never cared for AI coming into the photography world, but I have found that it does have a good place in it, just as long as it's not, replacing certain aspects. But there's this one tool that will help cull and like group your photos. And I can't remember what it's called. It starts with an A. Um, but it'll completely like cull all of your photos. It'll group them all together so you can go through them individually if you want. It'll mark which ones have blurry faces, red eyes, which is the best shot out of the group. And it cut my editing time for weddings like in half because I normally take anywhere between like 3 to 5,000 photos on a given wedding day of like 12-hour shooting. And that's like the one external thing outside of like Photoshop and stuff that I'm like, dang, I'm gonna have to invest in that because that's what burnt me out last summer before last when I was doing weddings, is I just gave up because I was like, this is way too much to go through. I almost like I even paid somebody to cull and edit like half of a wedding for me. So I was like, well, I could just spend the money on this website and do it myself.
So, are weddings your favorite subject to shoot, Fallon?
Yes and no. Weddings is where the money's at. But I do really enjoy not necessarily just shooting the wedding, but being a part of the day. A lot of times I end up doing a lot of the coordinating as well. And I like just kind of being a part of the family for the day. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely up there. My goal is to open a wedding venue that like caters to the photography side of things. Um, so it's slowly become my favorite. I used to be terrified of weddings and I hated doing them. But I'd probably say my favorite to do portrait wise is senior photos.
You have a couple of pretty nice landscape photos as well. I've seen. There's one in Sinks Canyon that you sent me that I was pretty blown away by. Do you like to do that kind of work at all, or is that just something that you do just because you can once in a while?
I do really like to do nature and fine art. I think a lot of what has stopped me from doing more of it is just mental health, I think. And um, I've come to a point, well, I've been at a point in my life for a while that like I'm only doing stuff if it's making me money just because money's been so tight. And so I haven't just been able to just go out and enjoy. That is something that I'm working on, and I did a little bit last summer. That's when I took the film camera out when I first moved to Michigan. And I'm planning on doing the same this year, is just taking an extra moment of like enjoying what's going on and getting more of those shots. Because I do really enjoy it when I do it, and then I forget how much I like it. And so it is something I'd like to do more of.
For me, I find that that type of photography is great for my mental health because when I'm out shooting nature, it's everything, all my worries, they just kind of go away, and I focus on just the picture and getting the picture just right, and that's all I can think about. And it kind of becomes an obsession, just to focus on the picture and not other worries or things that are bothering me. What about you,
That's
Jeff? What do you do any kind of fine art nature shots, or are you just strictly wildlife?
No, for sure. I like doing landscapes and wildflower photography. I was what you were just saying. One of the things I miss, one of the few things I miss about living in Texas was our spring wildflower season. And I would go out and be totally mesmerized and just lost in the photography. I tell my wife, I'll be back in a half an hour, and I look at my watch and like 2 hours have gone by. Oops, I better start heading back. Yeah, but just like seeking out different compositions, trying different things, experimenting with macro or what I call flower portraits, where I'm just doing a single flower head. Yeah, I love that stuff. I totally get lost in it and can just be totally oblivious to the rest of the world while I'm doing it.
I don't know how many times I've been on my way to some kind of event out of town, and I'll stop beside the road and get my tripod out and start shooting. And okay, I'm going to be out here for 10 minutes, no worries. I'll still make it in plenty of time. Next thing I know, it's been an hour and a half, and oh crap, I'm not going to make it at all.
Yeah, exactly. Totally with you.
Yeah, I think I really want to start working on doing just the art side of it again, because like you guys were saying, where you just get kind of lost. I'm the exact same way. It's just like I almost like forget that it feels that good, like going out and shooting.
So we talked about gear a little bit. I just ordered some new memory cards. I'm just kind of curious. Where do you both like to order your gear from? I prefer B&H Photo myself for almost everything. And the reason is, especially for memory cards, I ordered them not because I needed the space, but because mine are kind of getting old and I don't want them to fail on me. But I've ordered counterfeit memory cards before from other places, and I'm always worried about that. But with B&H, I never have to really worry about any kind of counterfeit stuff. So uh, that's where I do most of my ordering, especially memory cards and batteries. I've been burned on both. So where do you guys like to do your ordering?
Yeah, batteries for sure can bite you. You want to make sure. Like, I assume Panasonic has their own proprietary batteries. I know with Canon, you want to get actual Canon batteries and not some like Chinese knockoff or whatever. They will cause problems. I get most of my gear through Hunt's Photo. They are super supportive of the nature and wildlife community, I guess is the right word. And so I would say almost, unless I buy something used, I get almost all my stuff through Hunt's.
For
I'm
used
cheap,
stuff, I like
so
KEH and Robert's Camera, usedphotopro.com. I've had really good luck with both.
KEH is super good. I've used them quite a bit. I've actually, it's risky, but I've actually bought used lenses and stuff on eBay.
Yeah, lenses and I've bought used lenses, camera bodies, um, all kinds of stuff on eBay. I've never had any bad luck doing that way. So I
I haven't either. It just feels a little sketchy compared to like, KEH or something.
How about you, Fallon? Where do you like to order your gear from?
oh, I'm cheap, so I go to Amazon with like basic stuff, and then I'll go to like Best Buy for my cards. But I didn't understand the importance of like brand and SD cards um and all of the mechanics just in that. And I always thought like, oh, an SD card is an SD card is an SD card, you know, um, and would just always get the SanDisk. But I've learned that just the different types of SD cards and the importance of them. So when it's time to go out and buy again, I'm probably going to go to either of the websites that you guys said. The was it B&H, or like I used to just go to the Canon store in Casper and get a lot of my stuff. Um, so I'd probably be ordering through something like them or just going into an actual shop. I really like the brick and mortar camera shops just because you're able to engage with the people there, and I've learned a lot from them. So um, yeah.
Yeah, camera stores are awesome if you have one close by. They're kind of like bookstores. Most of them have disappeared. We had a good one
Yep.
in Austin when I lived in Texas, but now I'm out in southwest New Mexico, and God, I don't even know where the closest camera store is. Maybe there's one in Tucson, 3.5 hours away.
Hmm.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town in eastern Oregon with absolutely nothing like that. The closest camera stores to me, I'd have to drive to Portland, 4 hours away, or Boise, also 4 hours away. And say Portland had some really good ones. Is the camera store in Casper still open, Fallon? I've been in there a couple times. It was pretty nice.
Yeah, they're one of the only camera stores left in Wyoming. Denty runs it, and I think the other guy's name is Chris. Um, but yeah, they're really good, and they sell mostly Canon, but they do sell Sony and Nikon, and they'll be able to get you pretty much anything that you're looking for. Um, they just are like backed by Canon, and then they sell everything at like their lowest internet price or whatever you would call it. So it's comparable across the board. They don't sell it any higher just because they're brick and mortar, which I really like.
I guess I was wrong. I just remembered the closest camera store to me was actually Tallman's in Walla Walla, Washington, and they were mostly a drugstore, but they had a whole section of photo equipment and some pretty knowledgeable people about photography as well. And I think they sold Canon, but I went in there when I was thinking about switching to Nikon and just asked if, hey, do you know anything about the Nikon D200? And the guy that worked there said, yeah, that's my personal camera. And he brought it out, let me play with it. And that was pretty cool. And that's why I switched over to it, is because the local camera store had it and let me play with it. And I liked it then. So there's definitely something to be said for shopping local when you can. Now, yeah, I'd have to go to Casper, which is a 2-hour drive, which usually isn't worth it to go to a camera store when you just go online and order anything you want.
I would say it is nice having the brick and mortar though, just because they tend to be so knowledgeable about stuff rather than just sitting and Googling things for hours and hours and trying to like sit and compare and contrast. Like it's nice having someone who's kind of an expert in that field that I feel like it kind of lifts some of that weight. So you don't have to be so specific with certain things. You're like, hey, I need this for this. And they're like, okay, I got the recommendation for you. And that personally has helped me a lot.
Yeah, if you've got a brick and mortar store available, I definitely would support them. It's not only what you said, Fallon, but and also what Jeff said, being able to handle the gear, especially if you're thinking about switching bodies or switching brands, being able to handle it and use it, see how it feels, if it's intuitive where the buttons are, things like that. And then also you've got somebody to go back to if if you're having trouble or, you can't figure out how to do a certain setting or whatever, you have an actual person you can go and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. Can you help me out here? Yeah, it's
Yes,
definitely
instead
a
of
great
watching YouTube
resource.
videos.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, if you've got it available, for sure.
Like I said, and Jeff's right, being able to handle the gear is a big deal. When I switched I wasn't planning on switching from Sony at all. I liked my Sony. Then I got to handle a Panasonic S1 a little bit. I really liked it, just because I got that hands-on experience with it. Otherwise, I never would have even considered Panasonic as an option. That's something you definitely can't get online. So looking at it online real quick, just did a quick search. Wyoming Camera Outfitters is actually in Jackson and Casper, so they have 2 stores in Wyoming. I could definitely imagine it in Jackson with as many photographers go there.
Yeah, I think I knew that. I can't remember how long they've been open, but I think because I remember talking to Denti about, I think their store up there, and there's a guy because I was trying to find where I could like print calendars at a reasonable price to sell them, and he said that there was a guy up in Jackson that they work with through, I think, Camera Outfitters that all he does is sell calendars, and he's like a millionaire. I was like, holy cow, I wish I could be a millionaire just selling calendars.
Yeah, really.
So Fallon, I've got a question for you. Because you do so much video editing and video work. It actually has nothing to do with video. But to record a podcast, I mean, I could just hit record on Zoom and have that audio, which is kind of compressed and not very good audio. I like quality. I usually use Audacity and just record with Audacity. You can customize your inputs and stuff like that. I was just wondering what you use with video, if you ever use something different to record specifically audio.
To be honest, audio is my least favorite thing when it comes to video. When I was getting my film degree, we had to do a project where we did like ADR and voiceover and everything for just one scene in a movie. And I told my teacher to fail me for it because I did not want to do it. So I try to avoid audio at all costs. But when I was taking my podcasting class and my radio class a couple years ago, I used just Adobe Audition for everything. And I had like a cheap snowball mic and my room was echoey and it was kind of rough, but in Audition, it was really nice because I was able to go in and kind of fix and kind of get rid of echo and reverb and things like that. And it actually gave me a whole new appreciation for audio when I was doing that. But I never used anything specific. I think just at that point, the most important thing is if you can use good mics, get it. If it's something like this being over Zoom, then yeah, just having a good software that you can really just kind of tweak with the audio the best that you can. Because I was able to do full radio commercials off of my echoey microphone because I was able to just get rid of the reverb enough and kick up my voice enough to where it sounded good enough to go on a radio. So I think it's really just learning how to use the software. It's all pretty phenomenal, and I feel like sound in itself is its own art.
The first podcast I recorded, I made the mistake of having it record audio from the microphone I was using in my hand and the webcam at the same time. So it was extremely echoey. I was able to get rid of most of that echo, but it was still kind of rough.
Yeah, that's definitely an easy mistake to make, though.
Have you had
As a
any experience with audio, Jeff?
I don't, not really. I mean, I've done a little bit. So with, pretty much with nature stuff, either they don't make any noise in the first place or you're so much wind to deal with. But what I was going to say as a consumer of podcasts, I don't know anything about the software, but one of the things that drives me nuts is when they don't get the levels right and one person's super quiet and turning my radio up to try to hear them and the next person talks and it blows the speakers out. So if you can try to get the levels about the same for the different people talking, that would be amazing.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with that one completely. What do you listen to a lot of podcasts, like a lot of photography podcasts, and if so, which ones?
I listen to a lot of car podcasts. So before I got into photography, and I still love cars, that was my main passion. I've listened to a few photography podcasts, but not very many. One that I'd listened to quite a bit, but it seems like they're not doing any new content, was called Wild and Exposed, and they were based out of Wyoming also. It was all wildlife photography.
I like the nature photography one called Tripod, hosted by Jim Harmer. That was quite a few years ago, but I really enjoyed it. And Nick Page has one as well, but he hasn't recorded any new episodes for a couple of years now, so I don't know what else is out there that's really good. I like to listen to Gavin Symes' Pro Photo Show once in a while.
Yeah, there was one, I think he's more video than photo, Casey Anderson. I really like listening to him. It was pretty cool. And he was, I don't know if he was Wyoming or Montana, but he's somewhere up in there.
I've actually been wanting to get into photography podcasts. I just haven't. Um, so if anyone ends up, or like building business podcasts, so that's something that I'm wanting to start listening to. I was trying to find a Wyoming wildlife photographer that's on TikTok, but I'm not able to find him. I was going to recommend him to you because he takes phenomenal pictures. He's up in Jackson, and I'll watch his TikToks a lot and listen to the stories that he tells about certain animals. He just did one about a bear that had some cubs, and it took him I think like a week or something to even get close enough to get photos of it. And when the mom realized that they weren't like a threat. So I really like watching those types of things and listening to them, but I haven't listened to any specific podcasts on photography yet. But I've been wanting to get started on it.
The first interview I did on a podcast was Julia Cook out of Cody, Wyoming. She does wildlife photography, and if you haven't looked at her work, I would really recommend it because it's pretty amazing.
Definitely have to look into her stuff. I wish I could remember the guy's name that is in Jackson, because his stuff is just wild. Like how much in-depth detail he can get, and then just going out in the middle of winter and just be out there for hours taking pictures of crows in the white snow.
I love shooting during the winter. First of all, the snow is pretty, the ice is pretty. Also, it's really nice to go to a lot of locations without 1,000 people everywhere you look. It's really nice to be able to be the only one there taking pictures, and nobody else wants to deal with the weather, so it's a lot of times you get the landscape to yourself.
If I didn't hate the cold, I would enjoy it more. I hate winter.
I'm with you, Falon. It's beautiful, and I also like the fewer people around, but man, I don't like being cold.
Yeah, I'm being in Michigan. I was supposed to be living in Tennessee right now because I hate winter so much, but
How are your winters over there compared to Wyoming?
well, Not as bad cold and snow wise. Like there, so I was substitute teaching at an elementary school for a few months. We had like 5 snow days, and all of those snow days was like a typical Tuesday in Wyoming. And so I'm like sitting here and I'm like, cool, an easy snow day. Whereas in Wyoming, I remember it being -40. And I'd ask my mom, be like, if my car starts, do I have to go to school if my car starts? And she'd be like, yep. But here, the ice and the lake effect is definitely something that's different because I'm right on Lake Michigan. I'm about 10 minutes from the beach. And so just the storms that get pushed in from the lake is they'll just come out of nowhere. So like one minute it'll just be kind of nice or overcast, and then the next minute it's just snowing. Or there's been a lot of like rain and then snow, and then it'll snow and then be like 40, 50 degrees and melt partially, and then snow again. So then a lot of ice builds up. So I think the worst thing here is ice because it's not as cold, but it just like melts and then stacks on each other. Yeah, it's been the weather here, and I never understood like people talking about pressure change with like the environment and water and things like that. Because Wyoming, it's all pretty much, I don't think you deal with pressure change much. And being right next to the water, like there are days where my ears and my head will just hurt, and people are saying it's just because the pressure change. And then when it thunders, it sounds like a gurgle, like the gurgling belly of a beast. And they'll go like very long and drawn out, and stuff in Casper and Wyoming was just very loud and clappy. And over the lake, it's very eerie sounding. So the weather here has definitely thrown me through a loop just in general, because I'm like, this is not what I'm used to. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It didn't really relate, but I was going to say that the grass is still green. Like all winter, the grass stayed green. It's so weird.
That would be nice. Where can we find your photos? Jeff,
My
where
website is exploreandfocus.com. I don't really have a whole lot of photos on there. So my business is photo tours. And I don't know, a year or two ago, I took my galleries down because they were just soaking up so much bandwidth on my website, slowing everything down. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook and a little bit on Instagram.
And Falon, where can we find your photos?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well. Facebook, I'm Diamond River Photography. Instagram, I believe it's Photo Wayo. And then, or I might have changed it to Diamond River Photography on Instagram as well. And then my website is diamondriverphotography.com.
But you can find me on my website, www.wildphotos.us, or on Facebook at facebook.com/Jeff Futter Photography. And it's spelled JEFFFUTTER Photography. And I am also on Instagram. My handle on there is JF Photography Wyoming. And anyway, it's been great having you both on. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
This has been the first episode of the Rocky Mountain Photography Show, a brand new podcast. I hope you keep listening throughout all the episodes, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thank you very much, and have a great day.